Alice, and good morning to my beloved Center for Spiritual Living Santa Cruz community and beyond. I am so grateful to be together again this morning, even if it's virtually, and I want to start just by saying first and foremost that I miss you, and I look forward to the time when we can all come together in person in some way, even if it's not the way that we used to. So let us begin, as always, with 3 breaths together. So if you will, breathe everything out and take a deep breath in. And let go. Take another deep breath in and let go. And take another deep breath in and let go. And so as we move into the month of May, our theme for the center and across CSL is listening to the heart. And I think what an appropriate topic that is for us to engage in and to move into conversation and contemplation about, especially as there has been so much up and so much has been stirred in all of us over the past number of what feels like months at this point. And that it's time that after all of this stillness and after all the things have been rearranged and there's been a little bit of an opportunity for some of the chaos and the fear to settle down a little bit, that we finally take the time to pause and begin to look within and listen to our hearts. And so today, my talk is simply about turning to the wisdom within. You know, it is very easy for every single one of us to get incredibly distracted by the world out there, by the world that is being projected around us, by all of the problems and the things on the news and our individual experiences and having to pay our bills and having to create a new schedule and moving through the day by day. It's very easy for us to, in a sense, really get lost in just all that's happening out there. And in one way, there's a lot of information outside of us from the world, from our environment, that's very important for us to know where we are, for us to know what we need to do. But on one level, a lot of what's happening out there is actually a mirror, is actually a reflection, is actually a projection of what's going on inside of us. And I think that it's incredibly important that if we look at the world, if we look at our circumstances, if we look at what we're experiencing, and we find that there's something about it that doesn't feel right, then the thing that we need to do is then look back at the source. Because in the philosophy of science of mind and in mindfulness and in so many other teachings, the one thing we know is that it all originates with us. That we may not be responsible for the experiences that are happening in the world, but we are responsible for how we interact with them. We are responsible for how we contextualize them, the stories we tell about them, the reactions and the responses that we give in engagement with the world. And the place we have to start is looking at ourselves, is looking in the mirror, is looking within, and looking for the wisdom that resides there, looking for the insight that resides there. Because I believe that each one of us really is the universe in miniature. That quite actually and quite literally, there is more space and cosmic stardust, and the distance between our particles is similar to that between the distance between planets and stars. That each one of us is actually a universe happening, and there are worlds and worlds and worlds inside of us. And I believe that it is that universal presence that lives within us, that is the universe alive, being animated as each one of us, projects through who we are and becomes the world that we help create around us. And if we see that the world needs our help, if we see that the world needs a different perspective, if we see that we want to help the world or people around us, or simply just ourselves, find a different way of being or a different way to be, then the task at hand is to tap into that one that lives within each one of us. Because I believe that that universal presence, some of us call it God, some of us call it our soul or our higher self, that there is a one who lives within each one of us that is connected to divine wisdom, to divine mind, to all of the answers, to all of the questions. That there is one that lives within us that whispers into our mind as our intuition and as our inner guidance. And when we listen to that, and we step back from the circumstances of the world at large or our own individual life, we can gain a different perspective. And imagine that our life circumstances, the external circumstances, and all the little nitty-gritty that get wiggling into our minds and make us be concerned and afraid. Imagine that when we're in those moments of fear, of doubt, of not being sure about our finances, or not being sure about the state of the world, or not being sure about our health, when we're so close to it, when we're right up in it, imagine that you are, say, looking at a painting. And when we get really involved in our circumstances, it's like standing at the painting and having our nose right against the wall. And all we can see is this very close-up, narrow perspective. But when we take a step back, and we step back enough to gain some perspective, and by back I mean within, when we step within, when we take a step back from the circumstances, when we reflect on ourselves, we're able to see the bigger picture. We're able to see a broader perspective. And I believe that it is that tuning within, by simply taking a break from the circumstances that we're engaged in, or engaging in a spiritual practice like meditation or prayer or contemplation or yoga or a walk in nature or just a time of silence, that when we take a time to step back, when we take the time to look within, there is wisdom and insight and answers and possibilities available to us from that broader perspective that we could not see when we were right up in it. And so when we take a step back and we look within, there is so much more that is available to us, because what's coming through us, what is available to us, is God itself, is infinite potential, is infinite possibility. And so I want you to imagine for a moment that spirit, that your higher self, that divine mind, if you will, is like the purity of just pure light like sunlight. And that it gives itself freely, and that it's full of all that is necessary to support life. And that each one of us is like a prism, or is like a fractal, or is like a piece of broken glass, or something that light is shining through. And when that light shines through the vehicle of us, our sort of inner being, our soul, if you will, our mind, our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, our feelings, our memories, when that light shines through the prism that is each of us, me and you, it projects out into the world as an overlapping reality that we're all sharing. And I really do believe that in a sense that is metaphorically the way that God expresses in the world, that the divine mind or the spirit is always giving of itself, and it's through the medium of the soul of each one of us, of our individual beliefs, thoughts, and patterns, that then that spirit then takes form and becomes an experience in the world, becomes an individual, becomes our health, becomes the world that we share with each other. And if that be the case, then shouldn't we be excited and interested to then look at the prism, look at the pattern, look at the shape that we are and that we are becoming, so that we can allow the light of the divine, the light of wisdom and of understanding and of possibility to actually be that which is looking through our eyes and speaking through our mouths and hearing with our ears and taking action with our body and being truly felt by us. If we look within and we analyze the shape of our being, of the fractal in a sense that we are projecting, if we begin to look inward, we begin to heal ourselves. We begin to find the ways that we can clean out the corners within our life so that we can be more open, more available for the Spirit of life to come through us in a cleaner, clearer, purer, and more comprehensible way that we can then engage with and participate with in absolutely new ways. that we can see new possibilities, that we can find new answers that we couldn't see before. And Ernest Holmes talks about what he called the race mind or the race consciousness, which what he means by that is group consciousness or collective consciousness, and it's what I call the thoughtmosphere. And I believe that as each one of us creates a connection with ourself, and that each one of us is a way that bright light of spirit kind of comes through a prism and projects into the world as a particular pattern, as a particular idea, that then as each one of us project, there's sort of like overlapping layers of realities being created by each one of us. And then when we share in thought, when we share in community, when we share in ideas, we begin to connect with each other through this thoughtmosphere, or through this race consciousness that Ernest Holmes talked about, or through the group mind, or through the collective mind. And I believe that it is that collective mind that is actually the thing that is manifesting on the highest level all the time. You know, if you've listened to me talk for a while now, you know that I often say that the nature of the universe is to project perfectly what is going on our interior out in front of us as a mirror back for us to see. And it's not that the universe is just perfect and everything is wonderful and great and complete and good because God is good. No, it's that God is a process, and that process is always reflecting back to us accurately what is going on. What is going on in our internal. And that's true for our individual selves, but that's also true for our collective. And I want us to think today, as we think about this reflection of listening to the wisdom within, of listening to our hearts, of recognizing that the soul of humanity is a greater pattern that is manifesting and pouring down, and in a sense raining upon all things around us. We each have the power to create our individual world, but we're also working within a collective world that we are all collectively manifesting. And we are living in a moment in history where we are seeing a collective manifestation, a collective moment of attention, a collective moment of group consciousness, a collective moment of overlapping awareness. And in some ways, the world seems more and more and more divided, because I think on some level, this sense of connection, this sense of that which brings us all together is a little bit terrifying to some people. And so I feel like when love comes to embrace us, oftentimes if we can't accept it, we go running the other way and we push it and we push it and we push it. And so let us use this time as we see the world transitioning around us, as all of us have been on shelter in place for quite some time and have had the invitation to become more still, to become more reflective, and that we've now had time to sort of let the dust settle, begin to look within. Begin to look for the wisdom that resides in your heart and in your mind, because that is where the Spirit of the living God lives. It lives within each one of us. And if we can truly begin to slow down and take the time and take a few steps back from our circumstances, a few steps back from being so in the affairs of the world and our lives, and that we can step back enough to look within and to feel the divine presence and to know that there is a wisdom and an intelligence and a love and a voice of potential and possibility that is always whispering to us, that is always coming through us, that is actually the nature of who we are. And so the time is right for us to begin to look within and do our individual healing. Do the assessment of the pattern that you are and what you're projecting into the world, what you're expecting into the world, what's showing up in your reality right around you. And use that as a mirror, as a tool to reflect back to yourself what it is that you want to create, what it is that you want to change, what it is that is coming through you and wanting to be in the world. And then know that as we each individually work on our shape, on our pattern, on our inner work, on our reflections, that we then begin to work on the patchwork that is our collective heart, that is our collective mind. And I want to remind us once again that we are living in a miraculous moment where so of human attention is focusing on one thing right now. That on some level there is an awareness, even if it's of coronavirus, there is something that has captured our collective attention. And in that collective attention, there is a potential for some higher level of connection to emerge between all of us who are looking at this thing. And so while this is part of our collective attention, let all of us take the time to do the work, to look within, to reflect on what it is that we need to do, that we need to shift, that is available to us, that is within our individual reach of the changes that we can make and the offerings that we have to a potential for a world that works for everyone that we want to see. What ideas are coming through each one of us that we can use to move in this new direction? And so the invitation really, truly in this conversation, more than anything, is to look around at your life, look inside at your thoughts and your feelings, and look at where your attention has been. What are you focusing on the most? And if what you're focusing on are external opinions, external ideas, what's happening out there, what's going on with them, why are they doing that? If your attention has been out there somewhere, then the invitation today is to pause and take a step back and not be so close to the object of your attention. And then through meditation, through some form of spiritual practice, or simply just through changing your attention in a different direction, begin to look within. Begin to listen with the voice of your heart, and know that there is a still small voice that is always ready and available and simply waiting to speak to you and through you, should you be interested and willing to listen to it. So take this time to look deep, to pause, to reflect, to step back, and to listen to your heart, to turn within, and know that the wisdom is there, waiting to be revealed. And so if you will, take another deep breath in, and let go. And take another deep breath in, and let go. And together, let's take one more deep breath in, and let it go. And so right here and right now, let us just bring to our awareness the idea and the knowing that there is only one thing happening anywhere. That one thing is a seamless presence that is living and breathing throughout the entirety of the universe, that it is manifesting, evolving, unfolding, and experiencing and participating in all things. That this one thing is consciousness, that it is life, that it is energy, that it is the mind, and it is the heart. I choose to call it God and recognize that this is my higher self. It is my connection. It is the one who sees through my eyes and speaks through my mouth and hears through my ears and participates in the world as me and creates through me. And as I know this for myself, I recognize and remember this self-same truth for every single person who is hearing these words, because I know that there is only one of us here, and that one is God, and that one is animating everyone and everything. And so today, let us hold that as the height of our awareness, as we then choose to turn within and look to that presence, look to that still small voice, look to that seamless infinite one that is living and breathing us in every moment, and allow it to be the one who whispers into our thoughts, it to be the one who inspires us and calls us forward from our heart center with new ideas, with new inspirations, and with new ways of doing things. Let us recognize that when we turn to that still small voice, when we listen to the one who dwells within us, that oftentimes the only thing that we find is love, is gratitude, is a reason to celebrate that something miraculous and beautiful and magnificent is actually happening right here and right now, in, through, as, and for each and every one of us all the time. Because we are a miracle. Life is a miracle. God is miracles happening, evolution unfolding in every moment, and we are it. And so let us remember that there is a power for good in this universe that is greater than we are, and it is ever seeking to express in, through, as, and for every single one of us. And from that place and from that awareness, let us surrender to the spirit of life that is ever seeking to unfold. As we participate in it, we affirm it, and we expect it, and we receive it. And so it is. Thank you, my friends.